is sacred. Everyone. And I remember who I am and why I came here. And that's what Gary Zukov is talking about in The Seed of the Soul, is that each of us is a part of the divine, of the one. And with the divine needs each one of us to express itself in the world. And it's how we work together with love and peace and technology to create what's going on in the world. So we, we each have our unique mission, and we are asked to say yes to the yes, right? The yes that's, this is it. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. The infinite invisible seeks to express itself, and creation is always happening, whether we are aware of it or not. It matches our thoughts. It matches our beliefs. In a book called The Practical Application of Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes and Willis Kinnear, they said, this is an infinite thinker forever thinking itself into form. There is an infinite law forever acting upon thought, and creation is the result. Man's place in this creative order is to express, on the scale of the individual life, the same creative activity which spirit expresses in the life of the cosmos. Right? So we are how God expresses itself in the world. Now, God is infinite, never used up, right? And we've talked about E equals mc squared. Energy can be change into material, but the total of it is not lost. Energy is never destroyed. It just keeps changing back and forth, right? And so this evolution, this ephemeral nature of the physical world is part of the nature of the universe, right? But only about 5% of the universe is the physical universe as we know it. The stars, the galaxy, the planets, even us, all right? That's only 5%. The rest of it, the other 95%, is either dark energy or dark matter. So it's like this potential that's waiting to manifest. It's there. We can't see it, but it's just a part of it. And this parallels the idea of of God as the infinite invisible, right? Now, we can choose to live in the five sensory world, in the material world, and then learn to build an external physical experience, an existence that follows all the scientific laws. Why then does it just seem so hard sometimes? Why does it seem that we're just recreating the past, like it or not? Or perhaps we're pursuing a future that never just seems to arrive. It's always around the next bend or the next hill. We never get there. We have to live life in the present, right? And in the midst of it all, there is a voice within that is calling from deep within our soul. What if we answer that call and choose a path of awareness? An awareness that the power and presence of something greater than ourselves is calling us inward and upward. Right? That something greater is the universe, God, or whatever we call it. We are each incarnated souls that are an individualized part of the universe. We are the ways that God shows up in the world. Now, what happens if we ignore our calling? If we don't use our God-given gifts? So Gary Zukov suggests that we will feel an inner sense of emptiness. Gratifying the needs of our ego by seeking external power and material goods will never be enough, regardless of how much we accumulate. Right? Our accomplishments will not yield the true and lasting life satisfaction that we seek. Now, a quote from Gary Zukov: authentic empowerment is necessary to accomplish fully the mission of the soul. You and the work of your soul upon the earth expand together. As one grows and develops, so does the other. Right? So we come to this earth with potential, and it's up to us to listen and develop that potential. Right? We are called to say yes to God, the infinite, invisible. To say yes to the yes. Now, when we do this, we partnership with God. To express itself, the infinite creator endows each soul with its unique gifts, its unique mission, right? But in order to discover that authentic self, we undergo a training program called the Earth School, right? So one path is to function solely at the physical level, the material level. And here, on this path, we learn by trial and error, through pain and sometimes fleeting pleasure that is generated in response to our decisions, good or bad, our anger, our judgments, whatever we do. But we're also limited by fear of thinking that we're alone and by desires that never seem to be completely filled. And once you get it, it's like, well, that wasn't everything I expected, right? But as consciousness evolves, we discover that life is for us. And on this path, we learn that by changing our thinking, we can change our lives. We begin to change our lives by, in the beginning, manifesting parking spaces or better health, harmony in our relationships, and prosperity. And these changes are wonderful. We're no longer victims, but instead we are co-creators with God. But there is still something more, right? There is another path that branches off from this second path. It rises higher and leads us inward. This path is to turn within and to listen to that voice within our soul. And as we trust the voice of spirit within us, we learn to become conscious of the universe flowing through our soul. So our heart opens wide. We learn to love. We learn to feel the divine intentions in our heart and to trust them. God is not revealed only through the intellect, but in our heart, right? There we discover divine intelligence, divine creativity, and our authentic self. We learn to live from the inside out, right? And so when we say yes to the yes, we agree to partner with God and to co-create a world that works for everyone, not just ourselves, right? And this is how we learn to evolve upward and release our imprisoned splendor, right? In a book called Practical Metaphysics, A New Insight in Truth by Eric Butterworth, a Unity minister, demonstration is not working magic. It's not working miracles. It's not the something out of nothing kind of process. It's releasing your imprisoned splendor. It's something that's already there, right? That which you desire is already within you. So we can partner with God for joy, peace, wholeness. And our great gift, which, however, is our yes to imagining and creating our lives, our gifts, that divine intention for why we're here on this planet, our essence, right? And so our greater life that may be beyond our experience or our familiar, our comfort zone, but we're asking God to grow us, to allow ourselves to express that something greater. Maybe it's never been seen before, or at least not by us, right? So it's living in trust and partnership with the invisible within. From another book by Gary Zukav, The Mind of the Soul, he says, choosing is the act of creation. The more important choices you make are the choices about how you see yourself, the universe, and your relationship to the universe. So we get to choose whether we're going to use our limited thinking or turn to source. So that's going to make all the difference. So choose carefully, right? Now, the way that when we do that, we want to practice listening to spirit, and that's why spiritual practice is so important, right? And it's called practice because it's something you do over and over again, every day, reconnecting and realigning with spirit, listening to that inner voice, and then you choose, right? In a book called You Are Not Enough by David Walker, he says, you are worth more than you will ever experience, but you will only experience what you think you're worth, right? So that's why we want to have that alignment with spirit and know that we are God's beloved creation, right? There's a parable called The Parable of the Eagle, and it's an adaptation of an allegory that was written by James Emin Quigger Agri. He was an African intellectual, missionary, and a powerful educator. He was born in Gold Coast, now known as Ghana, in 1875. A brilliant scholar, he emigrated to America to study to become a missionary at Livingston College in Salisbury, New York. Eventually, he earned doctorates in theology, or actually North Carolina, sorry. Eventually, he earned doctorates in theology and osteopathy, and also studied economics and chemistry, and sociology, psychology, and Japanese at what is now Columbia University. So he was a very Renaissance man in a lot of ways. And, the way he studies such a wide range of topics, it really reminds me of someone called Ernest Holmes. He put a lot of different things together. Now, in 1920, Agri went back to Africa as a part of a research mission to identify how education in Africa could be improved. Besides his native Gold Coast, he visited 9 other countries over 2 years. In 1924, Agri was appointed the first vice principal of Agri College in Gold Coast. So he resettled in Gold Coast, bringing his American wife and 4 children along with him by that time. But unfortunately, he became ill in 1927 at the age of 52 when he was visiting New York City and passed away. But some of his progressive ideas included the importance of education for women if a country was to develop its full potential. He said something like, when you educate a man, you educate one person. When you educate a woman, you educate the whole country. Right. He also talked about ways that white people and black people could live in harmony, just like the white and black keys on a piano. Without each other, you're all sharp or all flat, but you need them both to have beautiful music. His legacy and influence on many people who became presidents of their African countries was also invaluable. Now, as an African, Agri knew the power of stories. And so this is a story that he wrote called The Eagle That Would Not Fly. So a man went into the woods, and he wanted to catch a bird that he could take home with him. And so he caught a young eagle, very small at the time, and he put the eagle in the backyard with his chickens and the ducks and the turkeys, and he fed the eagle chicken feed, right? And so although he was an eagle, the king of birds, he, survived on chicken feed. Now, 5 years later, he was visited by a man who loved nature. And while they were walking together in the garden, the naturalist said, "That bird is not a chicken, it's an eagle." And the man said, "Well, that's true, but I have raised him as a chicken, so now he is no longer an eagle, but a chicken. And even if he has a 3-meter wingspan." "No," said the naturalist, "he will always be an eagle because he has the heart of an eagle, and he can fly high in the sky." "No, no, no," said the first man. "He is really a chicken now, and he will never fly." Well, then they decided to try an experiment. The naturalist took the eagle and lifted him up and said with great feeling, "Who are you, eagle? You belong to the sky, not to the earth. Use your wings and fly." And the eagle sat on the man's fist and looked around him, and behind him he could see the chickens pecking at their grain. So he jumped down and joined them, pecking at the grain. The first man said, "Well, I told you, he's a chicken." "No," replied the naturalist, "he is an eagle. We'll try again tomorrow." So on the following day, the visitor decided he would take the eagle up to the roof of the house. And he lifted him up and he said, "Eagle, you are an eagle. Use your wings and fly." But when the eagle saw the chickens scratching down on the yard below, he jumped down and found his way towards them again and started scratching along beside them. Right? So the first man said again, "I have already told you, he is a weakling, he is a chicken." "No," replied the naturalist, "he is an eagle, and he still has the heart of an eagle. Let's try again tomorrow. Tomorrow we shall see him fly." So the following morning, the naturalist got up early. He took the eagle and left town, going far away at the base of a high mountain. And the sun was just rising over the mountain, gilding the summit of the mountain with each peak resplendent with the beauty and joy of a new day. Right? he lifted the eagle up and he said, "Eagle, you are an eagle. You belong in the sky and not to this earth. Use your wings and fly." The eagle looked around him, trembling, as if filled with new life. But he did not fly. And then the man who loved nature, he let the eagle look directly at the sun as it was rising over the mountain. And suddenly, he stretched his powerful wings and took off with an eagle's cry. You've heard that before, right? He flew higher and higher and never came back. Right? Now, every time the eagle looked at the familiar world, at those chickens pecking on the ground, he believed that what he saw in the material world and believed that that was all there is to life. Right? But when the eagle looked directly into the sun, this is going to be really exciting. Karen, I'm going to have to pick up your copy of my talk because this copy left part of it out. So I think the copier. Anyway, but when the eagle looked directly at the sun, thank you, it represents that he came into alignment with spirit and with the divine intention for who he was created to be. And it was then that he could believe, even conceive that he could fly, right? It's that power within us. It's always there calling, gnawing at us, and so he could then go beyond his worldly, limited ideas and allow himself to be empowered by something greater than he had ever dreamed, right? We are the same way. We can go beyond the limits we've accepted for ourselves because they're only in our minds, not in the divine reality. And instead, we align ourselves with that divine intention within us that is for us, our greatest yet to be. And even if it's something far beyond our experience or beyond our comfort zone, and we can trust that Spirit is with us always, and around us and through us and as us. We are in partnership with God. God has only one answer. Yes. Whatever we believe is what we manifest. And so the law of cause and effect is unbiased. It doesn't play favorites. Our life will manifest whatever we believe we deserve, whether it's great or small, and whether it only serves us or it serves the whole world. Right? So we say yes to the yes by trusting our desire to be more. Again, from the practical application of the science of mind by Ernest Holmes and Winnis Kinnear. There is an irresistible, universal, and divine urge within us to be happy, to be whole, and to express the fullness of life. The latent divinity within us stirs our imagination and proclaims itself through every creative endeavor. It has produced sages, saints, and saviors, and will, when permitted, create a new world in which war, poverty, sickness, and famine will have disappeared. Right? The world that works for everyone. Now, there's a man named Campbell Smith that I'd like to tell you about. He's an amazing artist. Now, when he was a child growing up in Philadelphia, he was diagnosed as being autistic. And so he had trouble expressing himself verbally with words. And so one day when he was in middle school, his dad discovered a bunch of Campbell's drawings that were stuffed into the floor register in Campbell's room. And he was ashamed. He thought that wasn't going to be an okay thing. But these drawings were totally amazing. They were depictions of a world where he had assembled superhumans in his mind called Audesarians, based on autistic, that helped him fight the enemies that would not accept him. So he gave these Audesarians superhuman powers, seeing himself maybe as one of those people. Those were his allies. Now his dad had the insight to see that Campbell's artistic abilities were that superhuman gift that came with his autism, right? So his dad bought Campbell lots of canvases and oil paints. And Campbell started just going to town, painted every day, all day long. And he had an inexhaustible desire to recreate the world around him. And he kept painting and painting. Now, when his dad couldn't get any more canvases because he was using them up so quickly, Campbell turned to cardboard, and soon he began constructing large sculptures in his yard. And so Campbell kept creating more sculptures and paintings, and eventually accumulating 4 graphic books of his Audesarians and an animated motion picture and more than 400 paintings, right? And you can see from this slide in the one in the middle, you can see him standing in the middle of one of his buildings, and they're this tall, made out of cardboard that he was making, and they're just amazing. That's the Chrysler building, and the other one is one of his paintings that they're really fabulous paintings. And what's amazing about his paintings is that he, being self-taught, he naturally sees the perspective and detail in each building and faithfully recreates it, right? Well, in 2019, at the age of 29, Campbell was discovered. A neighbor was impressed by the sculptures in his front yard and posted some photos on Facebook. Now, she was also in the art world, and so she got an art curator that she knew to come over and introduced Campbell to that curator. Well, that curator introduced Campbell Smith to the world, and he became an overnight sensation, right? Now, Campbell's works are now exhibited in prominent museums, galleries, and private collections. And he built a model of the Lincoln Financial Field Stadium in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which must be like 8 feet long and just amazing. And he sold it for $25,000. Right? He has won several awards and grants. Right? Now, Campbell's family started a nonprofit foundation called the Audesarian Network to change the face of autism by encouraging those who suffer from its negative effects to find and learn to use those superhuman abilities that are hidden within them, right? They're not the same as you or me, but they have some gifts that are unique and amazing. Now, April is Autism Awareness Month, so this is coming forward, and I know Christian Sorensen, the minister in Seaside, he and his wife, they have a autistic son, and there's an article in the magazine this month about how much they've learned from their son. And it requires you to live in the present when you live with someone like that. So all of us have our strengths and our non-strengths. And when we partner with God, the infinite invisible that created us all, our job is to discover our gifts and put them into action. These Audesarians are a teacher who asks us to accept people just as they are, perfect creations of the divine. The people we are called to accept and appreciate the most are ourselves. So what is your calling, right? So how do we put all these principles into practice? Right? First, we connect and align ourselves with God through spiritual practice, the one, right? And then we use a visioning process to ask, what does Spirit want to create through me? We can also say prayers for clarity and for divine guidance. And those prayers are always answered. And sometimes in surprising ways and synchronicities. Right? Listen with your intuition. Don't limit yourself to what you already know is possible. Right? Because with God, all things are possible. And when you have an intuitive spark, greet it with delight and curiosity. Maybe it's possible. So let your idea become real. Rather than trying to use your intellect to quickly turn it into something that manifesting in the physical world, it's just like something you've seen before. Instead, envision what your idea is unfolding right now, and ask yourself, how do I feel? Who am I being? And we don't need to know the outcome or even the next step. We just need to be in the present and fully live in this moment and do what is ours to do in this moment. And that's part of the unfoldment, right? When if you're going to go around that corner, you got to go from here to the corner. And that might be all we see. But God is with us all the way. And God knows what's around the corner, right? So even when those limiting beliefs come up like, this will never happen, or maybe, I'm not good enough to do that, or I need help, or whatever the issue is, remember that you are in partnership with God. And God can do anything as long as you believe. In all things, be grateful for the power and the presence of the divine in your life. Be grateful that God always says, yes, my beloved, yes. Then let go and let God, and the entire universe works with you to make your dream a reality. Now, as Dr. Seuss so profoundly said in his book called The Happy Birthday Book, today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Shout loud, I am lucky to be what I am. I am what I am. That's a great thing to be. If I say to myself, happy birthday to me. Let's take this to prayer. As we go within, focusing on our breath, we feel the rhythm of the universe. And we know that our heartbeat, our breath, is part of God breathing us. It is part of that divine life unfolding. The one life that is everywhere present. And we are an integral and unique and wonderful part of it. And so we let go of any thought of limitation, that we are not enough. And as we do, as we look up to that higher calling, as we say yes, there is this sense of being loved, deeply loved for exactly who we are right here and right now. We have been created perfectly with all that we need to fulfill our mission in the Earth School. To love and be loved, to bring joy and peace and wholeness to the planet, to experience in our own lives that the table is spread before us and our cup is full to overflowing. We are cared for in every way. As we care for others, as we forgive others, we are forgiven. As we stand up for this higher calling of what can be, and we let go of the lesser, we find others standing up with us. And there is this knowing, this communication, this travels between us as we know that we are all one with God, whether we know it yet or not. And so we trust that all of that is unfolding. And where there is love, we see it unfolding. We call it out and recognize it and say thank you. And where we see something that is not peace, we know that within is that divine peace that cannot be stopped, that cannot be held back, as hard as people might try at any point in time. And so we see in the determination of the Ukrainians, their determination to be free and live in peace and to stand up, that is moving the world in new directions and freeing that peace, that divine peace, to be manifest. And each person involved is being guided, whatever their experience or worldly intentions have been. That divine intention within is stronger. And so we know that in our personal lives, it is the divine that is guiding our thought, word, and deed, showing us greater possibilities, showing us how to create harmony in our relationships, showing how to be a vehicle for love and peace and joy in the world. And this is also the mission of our beloved Center for Spiritual Living, Tahoe-Truckee, that we come together to live in joy and in peace and through spiritual practice, come to know God, the one, in even greater depths, with even greater clarity. And there is a sense of being together as the one, loving and loved. To be a center for all of that in our community, for spiritual transformation, for wholeness, for peace, for joy, for prosperity, all that is good, because it is all God. And so I say thank you, thank you, thank you, Father, Mother, God, that we know this, we experience, and we accept it right here and right now. And so it is.